Hello and welcome. Another edition of Coach's Corner. And today I'm really excited. We're going to be talking some Conference USA Jacksonville State baseball head coach, Steve Bieser. And I really want to say thank you, Steve, for taking the time to join me. I know we're in the busy part of the season with the fall getting started, but I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today.
You bet. It's my pleasure, and always happy to talk baseball any time of the day.
Well, the big thing, Steve, is I know coming over from Missouri, you're a Midwest guy, and you've taken over the Jacksonville State program a few years ago. This is year number 3. I'd love to talk a little bit about your thoughts now with regard to roster creation, roster development. That seems to be all the rage with the cuts that have taken place here in 2025. You know, what is your process of taking over a program and building a culture and then B, a roster for success within the Conference USA?
Yeah, no doubt. I think the key word there that you mentioned was culture, and I think that's the most important thing nowadays is the culture of your program. Can you establish a culture that players love being in your environment? Do they understand like you have their best and you have the best intentions for their career? And that's something that we feel very strongly that we're just getting started here at Jack State, and we're in week 4, and we spend every single day 15-20 minutes talking about our core beliefs and talking about the culture and developing the culture. And I truly believe, you know, it's helped us tremendously as we look at the really where baseball is at, college baseball is at, and you're hearing about all these numbers on the transfer portal and people getting on the transfer portal. We had 0 guys enter the transfer portal last year on a very successful team. And what I mean by 0 guys is anybody that started in our program or anybody that was getting key innings for us, they did not want to leave Jack State. Other guys leave for different reasons. They want playing time. They can see players in front of them. But we didn't lose anybody. And I truly believe that was the culture that we started early. We were able to develop it throughout the course of the year. And, you know, culture's around the clock. I think sometimes you get your gung-ho and you start your season and guys really talk about their culture, but it's not lived out every day. And that's something that I think that we've been able to do a very good job of, is just living our culture every day, making it a great place to play and develop and really pouring into the players. But, you know, so that's the number one thing in the recruiting side for us. Can we retain our players? We don't want to be that shop that they come in and they play for a year and then they transfer to Alabama, Auburn, or somewhere to get paid. We want to make it a great experience for them. And part of that is as we go through this recruiting process is just being very transparent. We're going to start with a high school player every single year. We want to go out and get, X amount of high school players. And sadly, I think that number has really dropped for every Division I program of how many high school players can you afford to bring into your program with a 34-man roster these days, because the reality is anybody on that 34-man roster needs to be able to contribute, whether that's innings on the mound or whether that's valuable at bats throughout the course of the season. So where we used to be a program, in the 40-man roster, bringing 10, 12 freshmen possibly in every single year, now that number is almost cut in half, and we got to be very selective there. But, we're going to start at the high school player. We're looking for, the talent obviously is what gets them recognized, but then it comes down to, do they fit what we're trying to do? Do they fit our culture? Do they fit our style of play? And then once we get them in, then we're going to pour everything into them to keep them here. We do a lot of junior college recruitment as well. We know, and I think it's been proven that experience and that age and that those strength levels that, when you hit that 21, 22 years of age, of the difference there. So we do quite a bit of work in the junior college ranks. And then the portal for us is just to fill in any holes that we feel like maybe is going to be on that roster that's coming up, because that's a June, July transaction where your season's already over. You kind of know where everything's at, and you just fill those few pieces in that you need there. But that's kind of how we approach it every single year, and kind of just trying to build that, just build a sound structure. And we had a big turnover after year 1 here, moving into Conference USA. We had to really make a big adjustment, and we went really heavy on the junior college ranks to try to get some older guys in, and those guys have panned out, been really good. We're a little bit older team this year. And that means we're going to need more next year as far as high school and junior college to replace that older team, and probably have to hit the portal a little bit more. But the goal is always to stabilize it. Can you get a certain percentage of freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors, so that you can just be very consistent year in, year out?
One of the things I would love for you to discuss, especially for the parents and the student athletes that are currently at the high school level today, talking about when we talk about culture, so many parents and student athletes at younger ages are transient, meaning they may jump high school to high school, travel ball to travel ball, but the college experience is really best kind of engaged when you're thinking 4 or 5 years on a campus, developing physically, academically, athletically, but really becoming a part of the fabric of the campus. Can you talk a little bit about why that is important from a high school athlete's perspective, to be patient, to allow development, and also physical and mental maturation on a campus over a 4 or 5 year period?
No doubt. I mean, I just saw a clip the other day, I think on Instagram, where Tom Brady's getting interviewed, and they asked Tom Brady about, if you played in today's age, would you have had the same experience? Basically meaning, would you have stayed at Michigan because it took you a while to get on the field? And I think that's extremely important for our young guys to understand. We have freshmen that come in, and I say it all the time, that comparison's the thief of all joy. Like, you go to the weight room and you've got seniors on your team that's been in there 4 years, and you're getting frustrated because you can't move weight, or you can't move it as much or as fast as they can move the weight. And it takes time. That's part of the cycle. But I think we get caught up in so much of, hey, it's not working out perfect right now. Let's go change. Let's make change, when the change really needs to happen within the individual. And that change is like, you're in a program 2-3 years. The coaches know what level that change needs to be. So if you're just jumping from school to school, like, a coach is probably going to start over in the same level that the last coach may have already covered. And you're losing some of that. What I would say is that just steady growth, because people know you, they know what you need. But you got to be in a good developmental program too. Like, it's somebody that, I think that's the other thing that I would just tell guys to look at is, as you're looking for that school, look at a school. Are they into development, or are they into the recruiting? Recruiting's a lifeblood of any program, but does that program develop players? Do they retain players? Do they have a really development strategy that can really help each athlete? And I think if you go on a visit and that's not a highlight of the visit, then I would be concerned. There's so many nice places out there, and you can get caught up in the glitz and the glamour of universities. But, I think the biggest thing for the player is does a coach believe, obviously that if they bring you in on a recruiting visit and talk to you, like, they know you can play, but will they give you the time to get to where you need to get to? Everybody's going to respond differently in year one. Last year we had 4 freshmen that contribute a lot for us, and one of them took off from day one and was just really steady and solid. And the other one, it took a little bit of time for another one that was on the mound. Had a lot of ups and downs, but he still got opportunities, was still developing, and then he becomes, probably our closer. I would say arguably our closer at the end of the season in some of the biggest games of the year, because it just took him a little bit longer. So you need to really pay attention to, is it a school that develops? Is it a school that just, when you see 25 new players coming in every single year, then it's probably a little bit of a red flag of, this is a school that's just, going to go out and use a transport portal every single year. Like, that's never our strategy here. We want to be consistent. Like, we're extremely excited about this year's team because we returned everyone, and we returned the guys that had the innings. We returned the guys that had the at-bats. They didn't jump ship and go somewhere else, because let's be honest, like, they could have got a pretty good chunk of change to jump to a different school. We take care of all of our players very well here, but we're not a 6-figure school that's going to throw out the money for players to stick around. And they were here to stay because they know, like, their goal is to play professional baseball, and they know they're just a little bit away from getting that opportunity. And that's the biggest thing, is just finding that opportunity. So, but I think it's, each school's different, and student athletes have to figure that out. Like, what's the best fit for them?
one of the things that we hear from coaches, and you just alluded to it, is the strength or the physicality component. And I often find myself speaking with families and parents with regard to, hey, listen, the portal is more about the physicality than it is about the skill. And I would love for you to explain to parents, there's a natural maturation, physical maturation that occurs between the ages of 18 and 20. But really, when you're out as a student athlete and you're running around showcases and tournaments, if you're not taking the time to build the body, build the frame, etc., the skill sets may be good, but the physicality or the impact on the baseball may not quite be ready for the rigors of Division I. Talk a little bit about when a student athlete comes in from high school, is there an adjustment period to the weight room for the vast majority of them, or are a lot of the athletes now coming in physically ready to be at that Division I level?
Yeah, I think you could say there's some of both. The reality is what keeps a freshman off the field is the physicality, is the strength levels. If it's a hitter, he's getting into a baseball, but the fields are also bigger at the college level, and his ball, lands in the outfielder's glove. Whereas a guy that's a year or 2 years older that's been in the weight room, like, he can take the ball over the fence still. So that physicality is probably the number one thing that keeps them off, because obviously they are talented if they got to the Division I level. But like for us, like, that's the number one thing we address early. Like, every single freshman that we bring into our program, we expect them to start the summer school program with us. And what that does is that allows them to get in the weight room without the entirety of the team. They're here taking classes, getting acclimated to the campus, but the whole goal is they get acclimated to the demands in the weight room for a 6-week cycle over the summer before they actually have to start. They get here on first day of school, where a lot of guys, if they miss that, they've got weight room, they've got classes, they've got all this thing thrown at them, and they never settle in, and they really miss out on their first year because they just weren't allowed to settle in and then help build that foundation that we need. Because the reality is when you hit the first day, like, you're off and running. You can't slow your upperclassmen down that just because we got some guys that are lagging behind. Like, we've really got to make sure that they're all on the same page. But I do also see guys, the first thing we tell a guy when we commit, obviously, our recruiting at Division I level is a couple of years in advance. So, we just finished a weekend of visits with 2027s and picked up a couple commits in the 2027 class. And the first thing I tell them is, now it's time to get in the weight room and get work, get with somebody that really understands that, and make sure you give yourself the best chance to play as a freshman here at Jack State. So we put a lot of emphasis on the weight room in our program, and that's where we see strength gains, and that relates to the field of velocity and bat speed and those things that we know that we got to get them to the certain levels to be successful at our level.
One of the things that, I'm really a big proponent of, and have been as a dad, my boys now are 35 and 33, but when they were in high school and preparing to play in college, we're talking about sleep habits, nutrition habits. And on that nutrition perspective, we always talked about supplementation. And the Corvive team that, that's working with us with regard to the Coach's Corner, they have a great product that you utilize at Jack State with regard to hydration. I'm wondering if you can share what you think about that product and why it is so beneficial to your student athletes.
Yeah, the number one thing that we're using right now, and they've got a lot of good products. I know their creatine's really good, and we're using the Hydrate, and that people don't really understand, and I didn't either. As I was going through, I drank when I was thirsty, 100%. That's a quality product, but I got to drink whenever I was thirsty, and understanding like that's not really how you hydrate. You have to continually hydrate, and I've had we as a program before, like, we would measure out the length of the practice, we would do all those things, and we would make sure that the water coolers were set with the right amount, that if these water coolers have to be empty before practice is over, because we know, like, hey, that's what you need. But now adding the electrolytes and adding Corvive into our system, like, number one, our players love the taste of it. So you can get some products like that are solid, but is the taste good? Will they, you can have the best stuff, but if they won't use it, and it's just like saying, hey, you you can have the best training, but if they won't take the training, then they're just not going to get there. But, I use the Core Vibe daily, and our players do, and we have a lot of success with keeping guys on the field. We're not dealing with cramps, leg cramps, and pulled muscles and everything else, but we pay a lot of attention to hydration because we know that helps everything else function very well.
So on that note, when you're working with specifically younger student athletes, and there's more to this game than just the physical component, when you start to talk with the younger athletes about mental discipline, mental resiliency, having that competitive edge, how do you instill that in the younger athletes so that they make it a part of their daily routine, whether it's with regard to sleep habits, time management skills? How do you integrate that as a program at Jack State?
Yeah, and part of our summer program does deal with the mental side of the game, and we talk about nutrition, we talk about sleep. I mean, I say it all the time, there's 168 hours in a week, and in the weight room, we've got 4 or 5 hours that we're asking you to give it everything you got throughout the course of the week. What are you doing in those other 164 hours that's left in the week? And stress that those are the most important. Without the sleep, without the nutrition, you're not going to make the gains in the weight room that you need to make. And then it goes with everything else. Like, there's got to be this toughness. There's got to be this resiliency. This is a tough game, and you've got a lot of really good players around you that push you to be your best. So we dabble in a little bit of all those things, from nutrition to hydration to the mental performance side of things, like the Ken Ravizza and Brian Kane and that Harvey Dorfman started it way back in the day. But those are the things that we try to bring in our program, because the game is super mental. We know that. Like, talking to a player the other day, it's like, you kind of talk yourself into these things. Like, your beliefs become your thoughts, and that just translates into your words and your actions, and it becomes a behavior. And like, if you say you can't, then that's probably going to be the reality, that you can't. Like, we've got to change that mindset and kind of get guys set there. Like, to be a very successful program, it has to be overarching. You have to be able to cover everything in these student athletes' lives. And the reality is these baseball players typically go to the school that they can play baseball at, and they want to play baseball. And a lot of universities have a lot of good degrees that they can get, but we pretty much have a lot of say and control on how their future can look if we're putting everything out there and giving them the right information. And that's another thing. There's so much information out there that it's really hard. It is more difficult to coach players because they got information coming from every side. And it's just, they get confused, and we talk about those things. And it's like, hey, I know that, like, you can go on Twitter and you can find this new great drill that, it looks really good, but like, let us know, like, hey, that's what I'm doing today. Cause we'll get guys, like, we almost have them where we want them, and all of a sudden they come up, the weekend happen, and they come back, and it's like something's changed. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, well, yeah, I saw that, Aaron Judge was doing this. And I said, hey, wait, you're not Aaron Judge. So we'll get there in time. Like, you get his strength levels and you get his size, and maybe we'll try that. But they do get a lot of information from everywhere, and that, it is good and bad, but like they get answers pretty quick on anything that they need.
Well, I there's an inside story there, and I had the same situation happen, and I had to tell the family, hey, oh, by the way, Aaron Judge is 6'8", 275 pounds. So when he doesn't barrel a ball, it may go out to right field, but at 5'11", 190, that might not happen for you. So maybe try to just punish a baseball to right center gap and leg out a double. So on that, and really great segue, there is so much white noise in youth sports today. Someone has the latest and greatest, drill or technology or gadget. When a student athlete does come into college, how do you get them to understand it's all about becoming the best version of yourself within the culture of the team concept, understanding your role, and more importantly, excelling in your role for that particular season? How do you get younger athletes to understand, hey, there's a lot of competition each and every year that you come back to school. That's just part of baseball after high school.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to our culture, right? Like everything you said there is so important. The number one thing that we hit is that it's not a competition inside our walls. All right. So like one of our staples of our program is discipleship. And we talk about discipleship means to learn and teach the way. And we want our players to lead from the top down. And that means our upperclassmen have a lot of responsibility on them. So they're not going to be the guys that say, hey, go pick up the balls over there. They're going to be the guys leading that. They're going to pick up the baseballs, and they're going to emulate all those things that's about serving others. And as we get into that and we see, we got 18, 20 pitchers on our staff, and we throw bullpens. Like one of the requirements is, our pitching coach requires all of our pitchers to stand around and watch the guy throw his bullpen that day. And it's not about thinking, he just, hit 94 today. I'm only throwing 92. It's about a celebration to see him improve, and then each guy pulling for one another to improve. And as we do this constantly through the fall and make it that it's not a competition amongst your teammates, we're all trying to create something very special. And then the constant talk is being transparent and telling guys where they stand and what that role is going to be and how they have to embrace that role to get the next role is extremely important. Because, I've done this for a while, and like if you really keep kind of things just very gray and you show up on opening day and then you throw the lineup out, you see a lot of pouty faces and stuff of people like, I've been playing every day in the fall. Yeah, everybody plays every day in the fall, right? So kind of giving them a guide of like, if we're going to be really good, you must understand, like, we got to be a team. We serve each other. The more you give, the more you get. Those types of attitudes that we have around here is something that's going to help players develop. But it's hard no matter what. I mean, it's tough because you do want to get on the field. But what I tell guys, you don't want to be on the field because the other guy stinks. Like, you want that guy, you want to push that guy every single day, because the better he gets, the better you have to get. And that's just a mentality that we kind of embrace around here, whether it's in the weight room. We're always competing, but we're only competing against ourselves. The other staple for us is excellence. Just be the best version of you in every situation. So we kind of use the mantra around here, or we would call it our mission statement of Champions Edge, and just have the acronym for EDGE of being excellence, discipleship, grit, and earned. Like, we don't promise any guy we recruit. We're not promising you're going to come here and start for us on Friday nights. They know that it's going to be a lot of hard work, and if you earn it, you'll get it. But like, we're going to put the work in it. We're going to help you get to what your goals are.
Well, one of the things I used to always have as a coach, especially with my boys, was two acronyms, which was we and not me. And winners execute, not make excuses, and a rising tide will lift all boats. And so therefore, if you're lifting others, sooner or later, they're going to help lift you. And I think that's a wonderful culture that you're developing at Jack State. I want to ask you this final question, because I really believe that a lot of what I call within the industry are, making so much of this money, name, image, and likeness, and these Power 4 or 5 programs, what have you. But really, at the end of the day, the settlement has done one thing, and that is there will be more Murray State, Wright States, those Arkansas, Little Rock. There'll be more, I don't want to use the word parity, but there'll be a more level of competition across. In Conference USA, specifically at Jack State, you're playing SEC teams, you're playing really strong in-conference games, whether that's Liberty, Kennesaw State, those types of programs, Arkansas State. You're really playing high-level programs. Do you feel that college baseball now is going to be lifting from within to really elevate the game, the quality of play, caliber of play? And so now Omaha, literally year in and year out, can see those Murray States year in and year out getting into Omaha with a realistic chance of not only getting there, but being a strong component to playing like Coastal Carolina for a national championship.
Yeah, I think I definitely see it. I think it was very evident this year. Like, one of my a guy I had on my staff at Missouri, who's the head coach at UTSA right now, like they did some really remarkable things. And you see Coastal and you see Murray State. Like, I'll be honest with you, like, I thought we were in trouble because the top is going to be so strong that we would never have a chance to get in there. But I think what we're seeing is, even though the talent is not the same, the SEC, ACC, that talent is really, really good. It's superior. But you think about The teams in professional baseball that bought teams, and they spent all this money, and it was kind of a disaster. Like, the money is great because you can buy a really good team, but can you manage all those players? Their expectations are to be on the field every single day, and then there goes the culture. So now you're going to see these mid-majors that are doing a really good job of getting the right people in their program, that don't have the millions of dollars to spend on name, image, likeness, or revenue share. You're going to see those teams, because there's a lot of really quality players out there, but you're going to be able to see those teams build something really special. And then when the game's on the line, those guys are competing really well, and they're competing for each other as opposed to competing for something, rather than just competing for themselves. And I do think that last year was very evident that is really what's taking place a little bit. But I can't argue that the skill level is different between, the best baseball programs out there than the Jack States. But I think Jack State has a real shot to do, something really special and end up in the College World Series based on if things can go right and how we're continuing to build that. And you see the Coastals, and you see the Southern Misses, and you see all those schools every single year that are knocking on a door or hosting a regional. I think we're going to see a little bit more of that.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this final question, and it just came to me. Jack State camps, baseball camps, I think college baseball camps as a whole have taken on a whole new value for student athletes and parents. One, from a learning capacity, being able to learn what it looks like, feels like, sounds like at the college level, but more importantly, to develop a rapport, two-way rapport. How do you value your camps at Jack State?
Yeah, for me, we want to make sure people understand what a camp for us looks like. If it's listed as a prospect camp, understand there's probably less teaching at a prospect camp than there is a fundamentals or a skills camp. So I try to make sure that we let them know what that looks like. But to be honest, most of my coaching during a camp is with the parents. I will bring the parents into our team meeting room, and I will talk to the parents about what does the recruiting look like, because we all have these hopes. We think our player's going to, SEC, ACC, and he's, a freshman in high school right now, and giving them the realities of what that really looks like, but also making sure, and I tell them all the time, don't shut anybody out, because you don't know where you might need to start. There's nothing wrong with junior college baseball, Division III, Division II baseball. Everybody wants to be at the Division I level, but if that fit is not right at that time, there is still the path to get to where you want to go. So we spend a lot of time in our camps really, not just getting the player an opportunity to showcase and not kind of teach them some of the basic fundamentals and get them away with some drills that we think are very valuable for them. We like to educate the parents and kind of help their students find that right fit.
Well, I want to say thank you, Steve. I know it's a very, very busy time of year, and I truly appreciate you taking the time to join me. I want to let parents and athletes know everything with regard to Jacksonville State camps, contact information.
this product. And so we're extremely thankful for you for allowing us to do this. And hopefully it's just one of the products, and hopefully we can get more products in and just build this kids line because it's such an important